how would you like to achieve your first million? And today we have Ian Chamandy joining us from Toronto. And over the last 20 years, Ian has helped more than 400 organizations define their purpose and become consistently uniquely remarkable through his proprietary blueprint process. So, blueprinting defines an organization purpose in 7 words or less and uses to design how it will operate and communicate. So, Ian, tell us, what are the 5 steps that you recommend organizations and entrepreneurs in order to sell the first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, because usually the first step, right? Well, the first step is to have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next step is to write a business plan around that idea. So you've got your roadmap for how you're going to make the business successful. Then your third step may be, to raise money, or maybe you're self-funding or whatever, and then there are steps after that. That is the traditional process that entrepreneurs go through when starting a business and trying to make their first million. And the problem with that is they have completely stepped right over the very first thing that they should do. And the very first thing you should do as an entrepreneur is understand the one thing that makes your organization uniquely remarkable. There is something at your core, at your root, that makes you uniquely remarkable. And if you don't believe that that's true, think about a company like IBM, right? After the Second World War in the 40s and 50s, what was IBM doing? It was selling the most sophisticated business technology to the biggest companies in the world. 80 years later, what's IBM doing? It is still selling the most sophisticated business technology to the biggest companies in the world. Now, IBM has had generations and generations of senior leadership teams. They've had many, many CEOs, all of whom had their own idea how to make this company thrive. But they all kept it inside of certain parameters. Now, they didn't do that on purpose. Sorry, I just realized we have a distraction here. They didn't do that on purpose. The company just somehow did it for them. It's embedded in the culture, right? So there is something that makes IBM uniquely remarkable that has been keeping it on the same successful path for 80 years. And every organization has something that makes it uniquely remarkable, but almost none of them know what that is. You can have fun and say, ask any business person, what is that one thing that makes your organization uniquely remarkable? And they'll stop talking, or they'll start talking, and they won't stop until they're as confused as you are by what they're saying, because they just don't know. And the thing is, like, for me, I just can't understand as a business how you can't know, how you can purport to operate and not know what it is that makes you uniquely remarkable.
How's your purpose? What is your purpose? Yeah. So
well,
I think
okay. So here's let me make the connection there, because I've had this business for 20 years. We've been doing this methodology for 20 years. And it starts with, like I said, identifying the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable. And our standard is that it has to be articulated in 7 words or less. So it's a nice, short, clear, concise, and compelling statement. Then about, I would say 6 or 7 years ago, I discovered this quote by the artist Pablo Picasso. And his famous quote is, the meaning of life is to find your purpose. And the meaning of life is to find your gift, and your purpose is to share it with the world. And I looked at that and I said, well, wait a sec. I'm telling people that they need to define that one thing that makes them uniquely remarkable. And sorry. I'm trying to turn that off.
It's fine. Don't worry, it won't be more distracted than my one.
So I'm so sorry about that. So I realized he said, find your gift. I say, find that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable. That's your gift. So I just rephrased what Picasso said to say, your purpose as an organization is to discover that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, your gift, and share it with the world.
Wow.
And so that's how my process became about purpose, because your purpose is that 7 words or less statement that defines what makes you uniquely remarkable. So in my process, then I'll stop in a sec. But once you know that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, you can use that to design how you operate and design how you communicate, so that those 2 things in the organization, everything you do and everything you say, all of that stuff is always guided by the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable and reflects the value of that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable. And that's a whole process that every business skips over.
Finding your purpose is the most challenging task for an entrepreneur, and even for big organization. And the reason for that is very simple, that most of the entrepreneurs with the 500 millionaire that we have interviewed in this podcast, when they started the business, some of them kind of started like by accident, like me, right? So you start to solve the problem for yourself, then you start to solve the problem for somebody else. You make a little bit of money, and there you go. You are in business, and because we don't know any better, the main purpose, this is how I did it, right? So when I realized that I was in business, I think that the main purpose for me was to make money. Which is as horrible, which is as horrible as purpose, and this doesn't define anything. So has been a long journey for me and for fellow entrepreneurs. This journey, even to have to pivot and change businesses, because you have to align the business that you really want to do with your purpose, what you really want to do in life. And I started to do property business because we managed to sell over 5 million because that makes money. But then we realized that this was not my purpose. My purpose was sharing and learn and teach entrepreneurs all over the world how to scale and grow the business, and to do this workshop. So that's why we create speakers and leaders, which is something that when I'm working, when I'm doing it, I don't feel that I'm working, because this is my call, this is my purpose. However, the journey, finding what you really want to do as an entrepreneur, can be challenging, because at the beginning we just don't know, and we don't have experts like you that tell us about. We don't even know what account means. We don't even know what marketing is. Some of us don't have any entrepreneurs in the family. So imagine something, a concept so deep to actually find the core differentiation for your business. So what advice or what message do you have for the entrepreneurs listening this broadcast, that that they are listening to this, they are even thinking, what purpose, what they're talking about, these have nothing to do with my business? And so what message do you have for those entrepreneurs?
Well, first of all, to say that purpose, which is defined as the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, doesn't have anything to do with your business. Oh my God, if that's what you think, then you are headed for the rock.
And definitely not to make money, right?
That's right. That's right.
Definitely not.
But here's the
Never
thing.
your purpose is going to be just to make money, because otherwise you just this is you think, yeah, and this is what I thought also.
No,
You
your
think that
purpose.
that's your purpose, that you want to make money, and that's why you're in business. But if you're thinking this, you're kidding yourself. If you look deep within yourself, you will find out that it's something more than that.
Right. So
Yeah, go
here's the
ahead.
thing is that and here is, especially if you're in new business, here's where your purpose, here's where it's created, right? So I'm going to say something very provocative, and that is that every company was started for the same reason, right? Every single company in the world was started for the same reason, because a person or a group of people said, I know how to do this better.
Mhm.
You've been working in the business, you spend your first years learning and everything, you're trying to take it
I
all
agree
in.
with you 100%.
And then when you get better, then you can start evaluating what you're learning, and you say, well, I wouldn't do it like that, or I would do it like that. And then you get to the point where you say, you know what? I or we
Can do
need
better.
to start our own business because I know a better way to do it. That's where your purpose exists, inside that better way to do it. And so even if you don't know your purpose, and like, don't worry if you don't, because that's
I
99%
didn't know it
of
for
the world.
years. I didn't
Yeah,
know it
well,
for years.
okay, but I'm going to push back on you. What you are doing is not your purpose. What you are doing is an extension of your purpose. You have a purpose. So here's a great metaphor I learned from a book. I stole it from the author of this book. So he talked about his book was about three things coming together. And he described those three things as three shadows cast from the same stone. Right? So, what I'm going to say to you is purpose is the same metaphor. Purpose is the stone. Everything that you do and everything that you say is a shadow cast from that stone. So, when you went into this business because it felt right to do this at your core, it's because it was aligned with your purpose. It's not your purpose, but it's aligned with your purpose. And you could stop doing what you're doing now and start doing something else that is also aligned with your purpose. Now I'm talking about your
I
personal
agree
purpose
100%.
as
I
opposed to
agree
your
100%. I love it.
business purpose.
I
But
love it. I love it what you just shared. And you're
yeah,
100% right. 100% right.
so
Everything
even
you
if
do is kind of a shadow of this main thing. It
that's
doesn't
right, that's
matter.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Wow,
even
that's
if all
amazing.
you have is an idea for a business, you know what your purpose is. And the very first thing that you do as you build that business, or as you start to, build out that business in your mind, the very first thing you should do is uncover the one thing that makes that business uniquely remarkable. Because then it's going to be much easier. You're not sitting there saying, what's the value? How do I figure out the value? How do I figure out how to communicate the value? What are my features and benefits to my products or service? You don't have to do any of that because your value is embedded in your purpose, in that one thing. Maybe I can give you a case study to show what it looks like.
Yeah,
Can I do that?
100%. If you can speak, because remember, there are people driving in the car. So if you
Yeah,
can, if you can talk to it, that would be
sure,
fantastic. Yeah.
sure. So we had breakfast with the CEO of a retail shelving company,
Hmm.
right? So Home Depot builds a box. This company goes in and puts up all the rack shelving. And when they're done, the store opens. And as we're having breakfast with this guy, he says, I know there is a magic to my business, but every time I open my mouth to talk about it, it sounds so generic, so banal, so like anything everybody else is saying. So he can conceptualize the value, but he can't communicate it. And so I said, John, that's because you don't know what business you're really in. And
That's very
like,
cool.
John knows that he's in the category of retail shelving, but inside that sandbox, he doesn't know what area he occupies alone and uniquely. So he decided to do a blueprint. And just so you know, a blueprint is 10 sessions of 2 hours each on Zoom with the CEO and up to 3 other key decision makers in the organization. So they become the draft team, and I facilitate a conversation through the course of 10 sessions, and then their blueprint is done. So, you know,
Wow, very powerful.
I just got them to talk. And where the conversation got interesting was when they talked about how they had been in business for 3 generations, okay? Not 3 decades, but actually 3 generations.
Wow.
And because of that longevity, they had developed techniques and processes and systems and procedures that enabled them to get finished significantly faster. So you can imagine if they get a Home Depot finished a month faster than their competitors, that means the store opens a month sooner. And that's a month of retail sales that Home Depot did not anticipate. That's found money. And that is about $2 million. Last I heard, it was $2 million a week US. So you're talking about 8 to 10 million in additional revenue that they did not anticipate just because John got them finished faster. So as we're having this conversation about getting finished faster, one of his VPs says this, and he just says it as a joke. He says, you know, in our signs where it says opening soon, I want ours to say opening sooner. I just
wow.
went, oh my God, that is brilliant.
Powerful.
That is brilliant. And that
very clever.
The expression of what made them uniquely remarkable.
Wow, that's amazing.
And one of the things,
and the interesting thing is that you see, because as a facilitators, right? It was, you didn't told them, you just facilitate, because if you create that space, you create that empowerment context, and you allow them and you give them a space, they are so enrolled in that purpose, in that vision. They are that they're gonna carry this flag everywhere they go.
They loved it,
but because it came from them. I know that maybe you might be thinking about this, yeah, but that's a good the best part of being a great coach and a great facilitator is even that you know the answer, even that you can have the suggestion, if you hold it enough and give them a space. That's why, you know, you need 10 sessions, because they really need this space, because they're not gonna engage in the same way if you tell them, rather than if they come with it.
Exactly.
So no way. But now when they come with it, and you are like the insurance policy for them. That's all what I tell you. See, you are telling them, look, this is good. If you all of you align, is gonna get you really, really, really fast, and goes the business, get the business to another dimension, because when you align with this purpose, something magic happen, is that you finally find out why you do what you do.
Right,
and
right.
Sometimes
you just introduced a really, really, really interesting point, because I think probably a lot of your audience will know Simon Sinek and the book Start With Why. So, you know, they'll all, when you say your why, everybody knows what your why is. Well, what your why is it's that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable at your essence. Your purpose and your why is the same thing. If you watch Sinek TED Talk, right, one of the things that he talked about was Apple's why. And he said that Apple's why was changing the game. And if you think about
quo, I remember.
Yeah, if you think about everything Apple has done since the beginning of its time, it has not invented a single thing, but it took something that existed in a rudimentary form and it made times better than it was. And so Apple's
And the mission
purpose.
continues. And the mission continues. I
Well,
don't
I
know.
hope so. I
Yeah,
hope so.
I don't
I'm
know
an
if you
Apple
hear.
guy.
They tried to make an electric car. It didn't work so far, but they give it a shot to create an
Early
electric
days.
an electric car. So imagine, can you imagine that Apple launched an electric car? So how this electric car would be? It's similar, like you just shared with IBM. There is something intrinsic in the purpose of those companies when it's well defined, that even when I find out that Apple is doing a research and they trying to do an electric car, we are all thinking, oh my God, they're gonna come out with something spectacular, yeah. And the so apparently so far didn't work, so that's why they haven't launched anything. But I know for a fact that they have been working and investing a lot on that. So the point of the story is like once you do find this purpose, this core value for your company is something drastic change, because it's not gonna be resistant anymore. So sometimes, when you are, what I'm saying, without purpose, because I've been there, and it takes time. You said, okay, you have a stone, and all you do is the shade of that stone. Yeah, but this stone, um it has to become solid. And at the
I can
beginning
tell
of
you how that happened.
at the beginning of my entrepreneur career, this stone was too soft. It was soft. It was not even given enough shade. Um, I'm kind of going with the flow, and I kind of going with the why that I thought that was the why that everybody have when they do business. Okay, we are in business to make money, and you think, okay, I'm doing this to make money. But after, when you have clients and you produce a service, in that case, I was providing accommodation. I started to think like, hold on a minute, this is not only about make money. This is this is number one. These people, I was doing landing services, so people arriving from London, and young people, and they will start to learn English and to find some work. So I was the first person, that the first phone number that they have when they arrive to the country was my one. So I'm responsible for these people, not to give them hit, to make sure that they learn English, that they sleep comfortable. And at the end of the day, I was the only point of contact that they have. So if they have an emergency to go to a hospital, whatever, who's they gonna call? Me. I was the only person they know in the whole country. So I realized that the business start to turn around in a sense. How can we offer something decent to these people, that are students, so they're a little bit more vulnerable, because you see they come tight with budget, they are young, and same like everywhere else. You see, they ask you a lot of things to rent a property for a student, like 6 months in advance, or give me this reference. And we then thought that process would be suitable for them. So we actually we asked them how long they want to be in the house, which country they're coming from, what they come in there, and we did trust them. And in years and years that we had business, we never have an issue with the rent. So the whole point is that all this process, especially for the market that we were serving, there were more uh, just genuine people that need just a space to stay. And the fact that they are young, that doesn't mean that they're gonna stay there without paying the rent. They're actually very responsible. So finding that purpose and refining that purpose, and maybe making this stone somewhat solid and what is today. I'm talking, been in business over 18 years. So um, have been a long process, a long self-discovery process. I have to work on myself as well. And sometimes business didn't work, and probably didn't work because they were way too far from that main purpose. And even people in this podcast, they make a multi-million pound business, they lose the money. They make the million, they lose the money. And clearly they have capacity to make money. There is something else going on in the mindset of the entrepreneur that actually um, uh, is not aligned, is not getting that person to get as far as they want to go. So what and I think that have some clarity and some guidance for those startup companies um, would be a great help, because otherwise it's gonna become an interesting and long journey. And but also companies, yeah. So I've done some corporate training. Companies sometimes, yeah, maybe the CEO or the C-level suite, they know the purpose, they're enrolled on it and that culture, but the rest of the organization is way too far in the alignment of what the purpose is. And I think that it has to be aligned in the whole organization. So how do you or how do you approach the challenge that you find when you work with large companies and you find out that the alignment with the purpose of the C-level have nothing to do with the management, have nothing to do with the employee supervisor, have nothing to do with the employees, and how you close this gap?
So, I don't know if you're familiar with the Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF, but it's the second biggest film festival in the world after Cannes. And when we did their blueprint, the COO said, we've done these kinds of strategic processes before, but you took us about 6 layers deeper. And that's the thing, is that you really, really need to take the time to dig deep. Another CEO, when the process was done, the way he put it is, he said, I just really appreciated that they nailed our asses to chairs and made us think about the company, think about its future in a completely different way, so that we could come to clarity at the end. And now the thing, you know, there are two criteria for a good purpose statement. And the first is that it is so logical that it's self-evident. It doesn't need an explanation. So in the example I just gave you, opening sooner with this retail shelving company, if you're the VP of construction at Home Depot and John walks in and he opens his story with the words opening sooner, the VP of construction just goes, because he or she knows what it means. That's the beauty. You've taken so much time to nail the right words that those words explode in the head of the VP of construction, because they put two and two together. Opening sooner, you're saying that you're not only going to meet my deadline, but you're going to beat it by so much that I can start generating revenue much sooner than the company anticipated, which makes me a hero. Tell me more, right? So it's got to be so logical that it's self-evident. And then the second quality is it has to resonate on a deep emotional level with all stakeholders. So not just with customers, but clearly it does with the VP of construction, right? When you say those two words and the VP of construction goes, blah, 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 tell me more, right? But also with employees. So you can imagine at this company that the employees are very proud to have opening sooner on their shirts and on their hats and stuff like that. It's bragging rights for them, right? It was so John, the CEO, put the story of opening sooner on his LinkedIn profile. And
Wow.
he got approached by a mid-level construction manager at
Look
Best
at
Buy.
this.
And that mid-level construction manager said, I'm intrigued by this opening sooner thing. Can you come out here and tell us more about it? Because
Oh,
Best Buy, I don't know where they are now, but they were headquartered in
I can tell
Vancouver
you
at the
that if you
time.
can finish sooner and you're in the property business, you're gonna have a lot of traction there,
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
if finishing sooner means exactly what you
Money.
described,
Money.
perhaps and a
Yeah.
lot,
So
especially
so
especially in
so
this space.
John hops on a plane because Vancouver is about a 4-hour flight from Toronto, where he's based and where I'm based. And when he gets to Home Depot, so he knows what he understands the meeting to be is he's going to meet with this mid-level manager and her boss. And the process. You got to meet at the mid-level, and they love what you say, so they introduce you above, present there. They love what you say, then and you work your way to the top, right? But no, when John got there, he was escorted into the executive boardroom where the CEO and the entire senior leadership team was. There's about 20 people in
Wow.
the room. And he spent an hour he spent about 10 minutes doing his opening sooner story. And then he spent about an hour in questions and answers. And then at the end of it, the CEO said those words that everybody hates to hear, which is, we'll get back to you. Because that means either they're never getting back to you, or it means we'll get back to you in 6 to 12 months when we finally get our act together. So John leaves, and he's at the Vancouver airport that night. He's going to take the red eye back, and he gets a call the same night. And it's Best Buy saying, we really love the opening sooner idea. We have an $800,000 store build for you to do as a test. And if you do good on that test, there's many more to come. And they still have that business to this day. And that's
Wow.
15 years ago. Yeah.
That, no,
So
that,
two words opened the door for that business opening sooner. Why? Because it's so logical that it's self-evident, and it resonates on a deep emotional level.
and it seems that it's two words, but it's so difficult to find those two words. It's
Yes,
so, I mean,
yes,
it's not
yes.
difficult. It needs time. In
It takes
exactly
time.
that's why it needs the 10 sessions. It needs time, because you might think that this is something that you have figured out in your business, but I can guarantee you that if you look deep and you and you put time into this, you will find out that that is still a lot of work to be done. And but again, when you find it, can be a big differentiation. So Ian, how do you become so passionate about this topic? What's the story?
Well, to me, this is just so obvious, so self-evident that this is what businesses should do. Every business should know the one thing that makes it uniquely remarkable. And I am an evangelist for that idea because it is
That's your
so much.
purpose.
Pardon me. Transforming confusion into clarity is my purpose.
Oh
That's
wow,
that's
sounds really powerful.
that's my, yeah, that's my 7 words or less. Transforming confusion into clarity. And because to me, that's what this process does, right? So when a CEO and his or her senior executive team come into the blueprint process, that's where they are. They're confused. And it's not like, they're smart people. They've got tons of experience, but they've also got tons of options. And it's all very complex how you put all these moving parts together. And that's why they come to me, because in that process, we simplify their business so much that at the end of it, they have complete clarity about where they're going and how they're going to get there. And it's their purpose, that 7 words or less, that does that for them. Because there's a business principle that is little known, and my legacy, as part of my legacy, I would hope that the world would come to believe this, the business world. And that is that what the customer is buying is fundamentally different from what you're selling. So you're sitting at one side of the table, metaphorically, and you're feeding the prospect a whole bunch of features and benefits. And you've already lost. If that's what you're doing, and that is the sales process of 98% of the companies in the world, then you are already lost. Why? Because I'm giving you a list of things, some of which may resonate with you and some of which may not. But what you have to do is you have to hear all these things I'm saying, and then you have to interpret what the value is for you. And if I'm leaving the interpretation to you, that rather than telling you what the interpretation should be, who knows how you're going to interpret what I'm saying? It could be good, it could be bad, it could be whatever. So John, the retail shelving CEO, he has a whole bunch of features and benefits that he used to use to sell his business. We hire better people, we train them better, we've got better project management software and process, we got this, that, and the other thing, right? Now what he does is he says, we're all about getting you open sooner. We are completely committed to this thing.
So powerful. It's all about the outcome anyway. People buy.
So opening sooner. So, and then after he explains opening sooner, he says, and here's how we go about doing that. We hire better people. We train them better. We have better project management software. But instead of those just being a laundry list of features and benefits, they now become the proof point for your purpose, opening sooner. So you say, we hire people who work faster. Oh, I get how that contributes. It's like, as the VP of construction, I've got listening filters on that are listening filters. And John says, we hire people who are committed to working faster. Oh, I get how that contributes to opening sooner. And we train them to work fast. Oh, I get how that, and we have better project management system and software. Oh, I get how that contributes to opening sooner. So you elevate the power of features and benefits by presenting them within the context of opening sooner. But here's the thing. What I said before, the one thing that I wanted, if there's one thing your people can take away today, is that what your customers are buying is fundamentally different than what you're selling. So what John is selling is all these features and benefits, but what the customer is buying is opening sooner. And you need to know that. You need to know what the customer is buying in your sales process, or your sales process will be weak and frustrating. And you will be in a constant search for what value triggers people to buy, when the whole time the value has been sitting there, opening sooner.
100%. And then a great speaker, friend of mine, told me this long time ago. He told me, Harry, people don't buy the drill, they buy the hole.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
They know interesting in the more thing that are interesting is the outcome. What is the result that you're gonna why you do what you do? What's the end result? This is what they are interested in. This is, and then exactly what you describe. Then you can mention feature and benefits that contributes and enhance this end result. But if this end result of what you do is not clear, is not articulated by you, it doesn't matter. You can spend the whole day talking about feature and benefits. It's not going to work, because they don't buy features and benefits. They buy something bigger than that. They buy the big outcome. And as an entrepreneur, you really need to recognize that in order to avoid the resistance, because like Ian is describing today, one, you have clarity on this, you will see how all the resistance, Ian, goes away and how this client that you have, this big client that you have been chasing for months and you can never get it, it's actually leaning to you. It's actually coming to you. It's actually, and you don't even understand what's going on, but it's that clarity what will help you out. Something that might sound easy. I repeat, Ian is talking about 2 3 words, no more than this, probably 5 6. But just because there are a few words, don't take it for granted. Don't think it's easy. It takes time, and it takes professionals to create that empowerment context, so you, as an entrepreneur, or to along with your team, can come up with that. And it's something that the whole team has to be aligned, not only the CEO, because otherwise it's not going to work. This is something that had to be embedded in the culture. So Ian, if somebody's in love with the conversation that we are having, how people can find you, how this process works, can you share some resources with us?
Yes, sure. So if you go to my website, which is the number 7 words.biz. So the number 7 words.biz. If you go to my website, you get all sorts of information there. I would suggest you look in the blog. I have a million videos that talk about all of the, the components.
What's the name of your book? When can they buy your book?
Oh, you can go to Amazon and buy my book. My book is called Why Should I Choose You? Answering the single most important question in business in 7 words or less. Right?
Wow.
So our for instance, our retail shelving buddy, right, answers the question, why should I use you? Why should I choose you? He says, opening sooner. Absolutely. Why should you choose me?
Very clear.
Transforming confusion into clarity about the future of your business.
Very clear. Wow, Ian, thank you so much. That has been really, really powerful, and I'm glad that you brought this topic on, something that is really important, and we should be talking more about, and all the entrepreneurs should be learning more about it. I think that there is power in finding clarity, and this comes with you to do the work, and I really wish for all our listeners here that take this broadcast very serious and put a time, read about it, find some resources here and share some resources, and take this seriously, because it will save you a lot of time. It will save you a lot of resistance. And if you want to be your business to flow, if you want your team to flow, you want yourself to flow, you really need to master and get clarity in what your company is about, and what actually was your purpose, was your why, and what is the end result of what you're offering that is totally different than what is out there in the marketplace. Okay, so thank you so much. And for all of you following the broadcast, I see you in our next episode of Unstoppable, how brave entrepreneur like Ian break that wall and sold the first million. Bye for now.
Thank you very much, Harry.
Pleasure.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.